to another edition of Dr. Dansinger, Ask Dr. Dansinger with Dr. Michael Dansinger, world-renowned diabetes reversal expert. If you are in New Hampshire or Massachusetts or New York or Virginia or in Minnesota or Florida and you have Medicare PPO plans, he is covered by insurance, Medicare Advantage PPO plans. You are definitely covered to see him as a diabetes reversal expert. So make sure you check with your doctor and insurance for that. But meantime, he's here talking about the new food pyramid. He went into detail last week. Make sure you do visit our YouTube channels at youtube.com/the @ Michael Danziger MD. Also youtube.com/ the @ the weight of my heart. And you can see the full run through of everything he had to say about the food pyramid. But since then, we've had quite a few questions, more than a dozen questions that have come in, and he has generously volunteered his time to be here to get to those questions. So thank you, Dr. Danzinger. Just give us the Cliff Notes version, your basic insights on the new food pyramid.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. It's a great topic. For anyone who, I'm glad that we can continue our conversation about the food pyramid, which we started last week. So, the new USDA food pyramid, which came out the first week of January, is an upside down pyramid with the tip at the bottom and the base at the top. It's a total turnaround of what we had 15 years ago. So, what's notable about this food pyramid is the emphasis away from processed food. That's the most important thing about this food pyramid is it's a clear message to Americans and the world that it's the highly processed, ultra-processed foods that are driving these epidemics of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and related conditions. And the emphasis is on healthy proteins and vegetables. So if we Americans could focus on protein and vegetables, single ingredients that we use to combine to make salads and soups and breakfast, lunches, and dinners, that's the signal. And so what we have now is a lot of fruits and vegetables. That's on the right half of the food pyramid. A wide range of healthy protein foods on the left side of the food pyramid, and whole grains are still on the food pyramid, but they're de-emphasized compared to previous years. And I think this food pyramid is highly controversial among nutrition experts who would say, well, there's some flaws, and we can talk about that, but I really want to emphasize the strengths, which are a wide range of fruits and vegetables. Americans do not eat enough fruits and vegetables, and they eat too many refined processed grain foods. And so this food pyramid is aimed to combat that. So that's the overview summary.
I just wanted to see I wanted to see a big fish on here, and all you see are a couple shrimp. Or am I missing the big fish?
Well, there's a piece of salmon right underneath that steak.
Oh, is the oh that is oh okay. It just kind of blends in because that steak is just whoo right in your face. So I almost missed it. Well, I did miss it. But we were talking just a little bit ago with Dr. Lily Johnston, and she was saying, because I know there's some controversy, we have Nancy, on the one hand in the group says, I don't understand why red meat is at the top of the pyramid. I quit eating red meat a few years ago. It's bad for my heart, bad for the planet. But what Dr. Lily Johnston was saying, she's a vascular surgeon. She focuses on metabolic health, and she says the right red meat in the right portions can actually be healthier than some chicken and even some fish, depending on it, if it's farm raised, and if you have chicken that's eating all of the, refined the corn and all of that stuff. So I thought that was, quite interesting perspective. But on the other hand, we also have another person in our group who says, I'm on the carnivore diet. It's doing great for me. I have an autoimmune condition. But what are your thoughts on the carnivore diet and how long someone should be on that, if at all? So a couple different perspectives, but your thoughts, Dr. Danzinger, in this corner.
So it's a great topic. It's a hot topic. I love talking about it. So red meat and is prominent on this food pyramid. And so what I like about red meat is people like the taste of it. And what I don't like about, red meat has a lot of protein. What I don't like about it is the fat. And so, animal fat from meat and dairy clogs up the arteries. And so, is red meat good or bad? And it's complicated. So just like most people are not pure good or pure
Or
bad,
for
we
evil.
all so when I do, a lot is at stake. We had uh,
No pun
people have,
intended.
no pun intended. You know, this is all about you know peripheral artery disease. How do we fight that? And is red meat going to help that and harm that? And the fat in red meat is making peripheral artery disease worse. The fat in cheese, the fat in poultry, the fat in dairy, the fat in eggs is all bad for the arteries, but the protein is good. And so it's a mix. If you can eat eggs, mainly the egg whites. If you can eat red meat, mainly the protein and not the fat. If you can eat low fat dairy products rather than high fat dairy products, if you can eat the poultry breast but not the skin, then that's how you can use these proteins to decrease the inflammation in the arteries. And so let's not be fooled. It is not, it is wishful thinking that the
Yeah.
fat here is favorable. You want your fat to come from fish or from vegetarian sources like avocado, and so that's what the science shows. So
And
that's
you
a
do have olive oil and avocados right there, right front and
yeah,
center.
absolutely. And so if you're eating, clean, then you can get away with some fat from meat and dairy and you're okay, because the biggest offender right now is not the animal fat nearly as much as the processed, you know, foods. And so for a carnivore diet, that would be lots of protein. It's a carnivore diet works best if the starch is minimal, if the carbohydrates are 20 grams, 30 grams, 40 grams tops. And so if those carbohydrates are coming from vegetables, and if you focus on the protein sources that are the healthiest, vegetarian protein sources, fish, lean poultry, and red meat. Like pork loin is very lean, so that's the best kind of red meat to go for. So great question, great topic.
It's interesting because Dr. Johnson was mentioning, she's a vascular surgeon. She was mentioning that the eggs, if it was up to her, she says she doesn't think that it has that much of an impact on cholesterol, but you can watch it. And she says she would say, you could do 2 to 3 eggs, and that's fine. But if you need more protein than that, definitely add the egg whites. So different perspectives
Right.
with, right? Um, okay, more questions here. How much protein though is optimal for most patients? She was also saying that for this diagram in particular, it's for healthy people. It needs to be customized if you have some sort of chronic illness. So I just want to put that out there and make sure that those who are watching really do understand this, that this is just a guideline and it may need to be customized for your presentation of disease.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't personalized, and it's always better to have something that's personalized. But keep in mind, when you talk to different people, different nutrition experts, there's debate about
Yep.
what to do. But there's broad agreement that vegetables are good and that ultra processed foods are bad, especially the sugar. And so that's the starting point. Americans are eating way too much processed food, not
Oh,
enough
completely.
not enough vegetables. The recommended fruits and vegetables would be 5 servings. Let's say 3 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit, for just as a general guideline. The amount of protein to eat, I think it depends on the person, of course. I mean, larger people can eat more protein. Um, so, you know, for example, um, use the palm of your hand when you're having a serving of protein, whether it's chicken breast or pork or fish. The palm of your hand without fingers is a good guideline about for how much protein to eat. If you're counting the grams using a food logging app, they say about 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. If you weigh 200 pounds, then you perhaps could have about 100 grams of protein.
Mhm. And I had asked Dr. Johnston about chronic kidney disease patients because we have so many patients
Right.
that come to us and say the doctors tell them they need to limit their protein. And she said, actually, there are some different studies. There's actually evidence out there that says higher protein intake is actually safe for CKD patients or chronic kidney disease patients. So I thought that that was an interesting point, which goes back to your point to make sure to check with your doctor to make sure what is right for your presentation of disease. But it is worth asking. We're seeing this new data that I'm even looking at that she just sent me saying that protein may not be as bad as previously thought for CKD patients.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd like to look at that data. When I've studied this before, because I'm a big advocate of dietary protein, but in patients with chronic kidney disease, I think there's a lot of research evidence to suggest that a big protein load worsens it and accelerates it. On the other hand, weight loss and an overall healthy diet can delay the decline in kidney failure. So the overall eating strategy needs to be personalized, but I do favor limiting the protein in kidney disease patients. I'd love to see some of the new data.
It's in your inbox now. That was me.
Thank you.
Diana, who we're very familiar with and we love, she is asking, how do we interpret this pyramid specifically for people who suffer from PAD? And I love this part of the question. How would you redraw the food pyramid for PAD patients?
Yeah, it's a great question. I need to continue to. I hate to give a clear answer to that very good question. I'm still gathering my thoughts about how one would design a food pyramid. What I like a pyramid shape because it indicates a hierarchy, which I think is the most helpful thing. What I also like is flipping the food pyramid so that the what's emphasized is at the top rather than at the bottom. In old style pyramids, the so it's an upside down pyramid. I'm not sure if it's even fair to call it a pyramid anymore, but the main, the I like
More like a
I'm
food
always
tornado. That's what it is.
I'm always talking about protein and vegetables, and this new pyramid really does emphasize that. I would put fish and vegetarian proteins at the top where the steak and the cheese are. I would leave chicken where it is, but I would put fish there where the beef and I would make lean pork more prominent there as well. And so the and but I would leave whole grain at the bottom. So I like that. Many new. I'm in the minority, so I'm much stricter about whole grains than most of my colleagues. But so if I was going to redesign the food pyramid, I might keep many of the same foods, but I would put fish and vegetarian proteins right at the top. It's just a shame that fish and seafood is some of the most expensive protein around.
I know. I'm actually a little sad that the nuts ended up towards the bottom. I think there's a walnut and an almond that are down there towards the bottom of the protein sources. I mean, it's hard to say. It is so controversial, and I think that they probably ended up with a designer that came in and they said, "Hey, these are the proteins, these are the vegetables. Figure out a good look for them, and, and just go with it." And it is too bad that the steak was like, whoo, right there in people's eye, and that chicken is right there in people's eye. But I do like that the broccoli is right there on top and prominent. Wish the spinach was a little bit higher, but it's all in the family, right?
Yeah, as I've said last time, I would give this food pyramid an A minus, and it definitely has some flaws in it, but I think it has a lot of strengths, which I like to focus on. And so the vegetables are, if you literally put this in your shopping cart and in your pantry and cooked it up and put it on your plate, I think most people this would be a couple notches better than the way most people are eating.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what I like also is those who are on a budget, it also includes the frozen peas, right? Frozen vegetables and also canned vegetables in there as well, as long as you have the what is it, the BPA free cans
Right.
and unsalted. You don't want a bunch of salt.
Right. So what I like about canned vegetables is they're really convenient and they last and they don't go bad. So having those in your pantry is really helpful. Same with even better is frozen. So
Yep.
having those things around so that you can use them at a moment's notice is really an important part of healthy cooking.
And the olive oil. So someone was asking in here about the olive oil. What do we need to know about the olive oil? We always talk about first or early harvest, hand picked, not shaking them off the tree into a net or onto the ground, hand picked, cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, which is the best. A lot of the olive oil that's on the store shelves is rancid. So if you're going to splurge on anything, get to your farmer's market, go local when it comes to olive oil. Make sure you are getting the best product out there.
Absolutely. I agree with everything, Kim.
Okay, we have Douglas live in studio who has a question, and then I'm going to call upon Heinz because I know Heinz has a good question he asked Dr. Johnston earlier. Go ahead, Douglas. Ask Dr. Dansinger your question.
Thank you for joining us again. So, if you look at the food pyramid before, it gave us ideas. Now you look at it, it's upside down. So, for somebody who's not in the state that you're not in, if I'm looking for a nutritionist to help me figure out my guide and my plan, are there any guidelines you suggest to find a nutritionist that is not because you got the Mediterranean diet, you got this diet. So how do I choose with my PAD and CD and what I go through? How would I find a good nutritionist that would understand where I am? I hope that came out right.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
interesting he says that, Dr. Danziger, because you do have people like you that don't just have these standard, oh, here are all the proteins, here are the diets, like on standard just sheets to hand out. You really customize it. So I would imagine that someone who can customize it for you is probably one of the top choices.
Douglas, you've made asked a really important question, and yeah, Kim and I are on the same page that personalized nutrition advice is the best, and um, having access to nutrition experts is something that we're sorely lacking in the United States. And so, most insurance, Kim, does the PAD Association have any resources for that? And while you're thinking about that, I would say, many insurance companies have, access to nutritionists, and you ask your primary care provider for um, recommendations. So there are many nutritionists, dietitians, around the United States who are happy to work with people, either in person or via video, but usually it's cash out of pocket payments, which might be very limiting for most people. So, Kim, what
Yeah,
about
and
you?
so there are these new online, the virtual ones. There are actual hubs online that dietitians, nutritionists can sign up for, and they put what insurance they take and all that jazz. So you can definitely search for virtual dietitians or virtual nutritionists, and they are available, and they state on there um, what insurance they do take. The problem with a lot of the insurance companies out there is that they there are a lot of them that do not even offer any sort of referral or
Right.
coverage for a nutritionist or dietitian. That is, unless you do have diabetes, that is one that seems to be consistent, that most do seem to offer some sort of coverage. They'll cover programs like yours. There are a couple of other programs that are available through different insurance, but it is, just a certain time frame, right, of coverage for a nutritionist or dietitian. For people with heart disease, most will cover a cardio rehab program, but individual dietitians or nutritionists, few and far between in terms of coverage. And if they are covered, gosh, to get individual appointments with them, that's really tough. And so that's why having office hours every week with you, so people can come and get consistent support, accountability, and have their questions answered, I think is really, really beneficial. But Heinz, you also have a question, which you asked Dr. Johnston earlier. Curious what Dr. Dansinger has to say. It's a fun question.
I wrote it down earlier, so I'm going to go from my head now because I don't remember totally what the question was. But anyway, the new pyramid discusses about alcohol, and it says basically that don't drink so much. So you have the Mediterranean diet, and it seems to work for a lot of those Mediterranean countries who drink a lot more wine per capita. So why is that it works for them and they drink more wine than we do in the States?
Great question about
That
red
is a
wine.
great question.
Yeah, so the many places in the world have wine as part of their culture, and when it's not abused, when it's one glass of red wine in the evening with dinner, that a lot of healthy places, including especially the Mediterranean diet, do it that way. And met a lot of observational studies in the United States and elsewhere had been showing for decades that people who drank one or even two glasses of alcohol of wine seem to be healthier than those who don't. And those studies have not shown cause and effect. And in the last 5 years, those observational studies are no longer considered to be correct. And as far as we can tell now, the research points to alcohol, including red wine, having really no health benefit at all. And so you can imagine in these Mediterranean countries where they're living right and eating right and a lot of fish and fruits and vegetables and not a lot of processed food, they're living long and thriving, not because of the wine, but aside from the wine. And so I think that's the current thinking right now.
Despite the wine.
Yeah, so wine has sugar and calories, and we used to think that the skin of the grape was, driving a lot of health benefits. But I do think that, grape skin has health benefits, but I think wine is counterproductive for everything, including heart disease. So that's what the current evidence is pointing toward. So those are my thoughts on that.
And we had NP Deidre who came on and said that she would rather you take a resveratrol supplement if you're drinking the wine for the resveratrol than to drink the glass of wine. But Dr. Johnston did say if you want to have one glass of something, you can have a glass and make sure it's okay with your pharmaceuticals, your medicine that you're taking, and whatever else, and your doctor knows. And Carrie May, she has a question. I was curious about why they recommend a full fat dairy rather than low fat or fat free. Preaching to the choir here, right? Also, are eggs okay to eat every day or limited each week?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a complicated topic. So I've been very clear since day one that I think animal fat from meat and dairy clogs up the arteries because of so much research and nutrition experience, especially in the Nordic countries from 50 to 75 years ago, where they were eating clean. They weren't eating any processed food, and they were working hard and eating a lot of fish, but they were still, heart disease was rampant, and that was because of the fat in the meat and dairy. Once those Nordic countries became aware of this, they were able to quickly turn around their heart disease epidemics by just awareness that the low fat versions of these dairy products were better. So there's a lot of speculation about why red meat and dairy fat is so prominent in this pyramid, but I will say this: the science shows that for fermented dairy like yogurt and cheese, that there's a lot of healthy properties in cheese and dairy that are offsetting the animal fat component, and so it's kind of a break-even, a wash. And that's new evidence. It's in observational studies and in short-term, very short-term clinical trials, and so the jury's still out, I think, but there's something about the fermentation of the yogurt and the cheese that I think helps offset the negative aspects of the dairy fat in these foods.
And I think on page 2, they spent a lot on gut health, and the microbiome. So that definitely makes sense. Just your overall thoughts on, the sauerkraut, the natto, the miso, the
Fermented foods,
kimchi.
yeah, fermented foods are good, and they have healthy bacteria in there. So you listed a lot of great examples of fermented foods, and so I'm in favor of those. And as long as they
Just
don't
watch
have
the salt.
a lot of, so these foods are a mix, though, so they can have sugar or salt in them, and so if they have to have a certain amount of sugar and or salt in them, just so that they ferment properly. So sauerkraut is just a great example, but there's salt in there, and so if you're watching your sodium is bad. Cabbage and healthy bacteria are good, so it's a mix. And so these are usually helpful foods for most people, but there's a point where you could overdo it. And when it comes to yogurt, I recommend the low-fat version of the yogurt as well.
Can I get one more question in here?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because Kimberly wants to know, what do we know about vitamins or supplements? Do any of them help along with food?
So food is 10 times more important than supplements. We had a whole conversation about this in the past. Supplements need to be personalized, so I would recommend doing that with a healthcare professional. Some of the most favorable supplements out there are like magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, the B vitamins, fish oil for people who have known heart disease,
turmeric.
And then there's the herbs and spices, so turmeric, cinnamon, ginger, garlic, all have potential health properties. I don't like them so much as pill supplements as use in cooking. And so, resveratrol is a great example of trying to take something healthy out of a fruit and vegetable, in this case the grape skin, and putting it in a pill. And I've been disappointed with the results of most efforts to distill the essence of the healthiness into a pill. You have to actually eat the food in order to get most of the health benefits, unfortunately.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dansinger. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those questions coming in. We are here every week with Dr. Michael Dansinger on Ask Dr. Dansinger. Make sure you do subscribe to his channel at youtube.com/the@ Michael Dansinger, MD, and also youtube.com/the@ the way to my heart. Subscribe to our channels. Get notified every time we have a great session such as this. But for Dr. Dansinger, it's every Monday. Show up, get some accountability, get your questions answered about what should be on your plate. And if you do have the Medicare or Medicare Advantage PPO plans, and you're in Virginia, you're in New Hampshire, you're in Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, or Florida, I forgot Florida earlier, make sure you do check out diabetesreversalpartners.com. And